This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss, co-host of PBS's MotorWeek. He'll take your calls and comments now at 844-885-4677 or email him at radio@goss-garage.com. And now, Pat Goss.
And welcome to another edition of Goss's Garage. I'm Pat Goss. If you'd like to talk about anything at all that deals with an automobile or something with an engine in it, by all means, please give me a call. Love to talk to you about these things. Number's 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-4677. Now, Miss Heather asked me to remind you, every fall many drivers make the same old mistakes, like warming the engine for too long. As soon as there is the tiniest chill in the air, everyone wants toasty warm air inside the car and use the lame excuse that it's better for the car. Sadly, it is not better for the car and never was better. Let the car warm up only a minute to 90 seconds for longest vehicle life. Next is failing to make the car winter ready. Before bad weather hits, make sure all the fluids, safety parts, and especially tires are ready for colder temperatures and more dangerous driving conditions. Now, what makes driving more dangerous? Many things, including snow and ice for some, but universally leaves and deer. Leaves are a universal hazard because they collect and can obscure lane and traffic markings. Plus, leaves and a bit of water gives you a road surface that is as slippery as ice. Leaves are a serious driving hazard. Another thing about leaves is we rake them, pile them, often at the curb where we also park, and then the blazing hot catalytic converter sets the leaves on fire, and it could be goodbye car. Use common sense on things like this to avoid problems. Another big issue in the fall is deer. Fall is the deer mating season, which means deer pay less attention to their surroundings and more attention to finding a mate. Other things that affect how deer move about is the change in farmers' routines as they harvest fall crops and prep for spring planting. Also, deer are mostly nocturnal feeders, which means more nighttime movement. So, when they're hardest to see, deer are the most active and the least concerned about cars. Remember, according to the National Safety Council, only 25% of our driving is done at night, yet 50%, that's 50% of traffic deaths occur at night. Slow down and use extra caution on leaf-covered roads and where there is deer activity. Other things to consider: turn your lights on at dawn and at dusk or when visibility is compromised. Yes, I know you can see just fine, hear that all the time, but can other drivers see you just fine? Plus a little added light, well, never hurt anyone and might help you see a leaf-covered pothole or some other hidden trap waiting to kill a tire or wheel or something more vital. Speaking of lights, did you know that in fog you should be using your low beam lights? Using the high beams in fog causes light to be reflected back at you, making it harder, not easier to see. And let's not forget the morons who refuse to turn on their lights when it's raining. Again, ignorance comes to the fore because these folks always use the excuse that they can see fine. But hey, that's not the reason. It's so other drivers can better see you. This is so important that some manufacturers now make it possible to set a car's computer to automatically turn the lights on when you turn the wipers on. You may need your sunglasses more in the fall and winter because of the lower angle of sunlight, which can lead to more glare. On chilly mornings, watch out for black ice, too. All in all, fall is a beautiful but dangerous season that can be made safer by using a few simple tricks. Oh yeah, always buckle up and put down the damn cell phone. Yeah, that's always good advice. Cell phones can be a real hazard. All right, some of the questions that we've had this week. One is about batteries. Tim wanted to know about having his battery tested. He says only 3 years old, everything seems to be working fine. Should he have it tested? Well, yeah, just because things are working fine doesn't mean the battery is fine. Now, when it comes to batteries, they should automatically be tested twice a year. Twice a year is in the spring before we get into the hot months, and in the fall before we get into the really cold months. See, the thing is that during the real hot summer months, a lot of damage can be done to the battery. Now, that doesn't show up until the weather gets cold, and when the weather gets cold, it takes more out of the battery to start the car because oil is thicker and things are harder to move when they're cold and so on. Plus, when the battery gets cold, it loses its ability to generate energy. So what you have going on here is a battery that is less capable and an engine that requires more power to turn it over. All right, so what do? Well, you get a battery test. Now, a legitimate battery test is going to be done with a substantial battery tester. It's not one of these little rinky-dink things that a lot of places use, a lot of do-it-yourselfers use, and so on. $50 or less. No, an actual, real, honest-to-goodness battery tester is going to cost several $1,000s, and it's going to be rather sophisticated in the way it tests the battery. All right, so before winter and before summer is when we get our batteries tested. Now, the thing here is that modern batteries, they frequently fail with no warning. So you might go out and start the car and drive it down to the corner store. Everything was fine. You go in, you buy your morning coffee, you come back out, you put the key in the ignition, and nothing. May not even light the dome lights inside the car. Well, that's how quick a battery can go from no symptom to no power whatsoever. So this is why you get batteries tested, because batteries have the the ability to be going right along and everything working fine, and just all of a sudden they crap out. Battery testers, the good ones, not these little rinky-dink things, the good battery testers, most of them can pretty much predict what is going on with the battery and how long that battery is going to last. So get the battery tested. It's a whole lot better to find out now before it gets cold, to find out that you need a battery, yours is on the way out, than it is to wind up with a dead battery on the first cold morning that you get. And when you get that cold, you're probably late for work, you're trying to do all sorts of things. Hit the key, nothing. Doesn't work. Now you need road service, or you need something. Maybe you need to charge the battery yourself, or use one of these pocket boosters or something. No, I'm not talking about booster cables, because I don't believe in booster cables. No way, no how. Anyway, what you're going to wind up with at bare minimum is that you're probably going to be late for work. Now, I don't know, maybe you're on a salary and maybe it doesn't matter. But if you aren't on a salary and it does matter, then not only are you still going to have to buy a battery, but you're going to have to pay somebody possibly to tow the car and all this other stuff. So it's a lot better to know beforehand, to be proactive rather than reactive, and get the battery tested now, replace it at your leisure before it gets really cold. So these are things to consider. Now, suppose you have some symptoms. What might those symptoms be? Well, we'll discuss that in just a moment when Goss's Garage continues.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Never drive with a bad attitude. I know that's hard with so many stupid, distracted, aggressive, and just plain rude drivers on the road, but it really is the safe thing to do. I drive a lot, and I used to see reckless, rude, or aggressive drivers maybe once a month, but today it seems like every other driver is doing something stupid. When it was sporadic, it wasn't so hard to deal with, but now it seems like there's always an idiot 3 feet from my rear bumper or weaving into my lane or cutting me off. Distracted? Probably. Dangerous? Absolutely. But there's nothing to do except drive defensively and not aggravate other drivers. Much as I'd like to, I don't middle finger the offending driver, and definitely don't hit my brakes to scare a tailgater. Initially, these situations may be simple mistakes, but an aggressive response to a mistake can escalate it into a personal confrontation, which can easily turn into road rage. Unfortunately, you have no idea which one of these idiots will try to hurt you with their car, a weapon, or their fists. Also, never make direct eye contact with the offending driver. If you're the offender, be courteous and get out of the way. Whether it's a mistake or intentional aggression, remember, back down, yield, let it go. It takes brains to overcome anger. Use your brain. Be smart. Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe, too, because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677.
Hey folks, do you know what this is? Well, if you'd like to find out, check out our Goss's Garage YouTube channel, and we will tell you what it is. For those of you enjoying Goss's Garage on TuneIn.com, please note our new time at 9 a.m. Eastern. We do repeat this show at 1 p.m. Of course, you can't call in at 1, but all of the content will be there. All right, we were talking about batteries and some of the symptoms that you might see. Now, one of the things that you may notice as your battery gets old and tired, if it's going to give you symptoms, you may notice that at night when you're driving. You come to a traffic light and you notice that as you're sitting there, your lights get a little more dim than they were. And when you step on the gas to accelerate away from the lights get real bright. And that is a symptom of a bad battery. Now what's going on is that the alternator on the car can't always produce enough energy to maintain all of the electrical loads on the vehicle, so the battery has to do that. Well, if the battery is weak, the voltage drops. Voltage level goes down. And as it goes down, your lights get more dim. Things like turn signals may slow down. Instead of going blink, 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 they may go blink, blink, and keep getting slower and may actually stop. If you have the windshield wipers on, the windshield wipers, the longer you sit there, the slower they go. These are all symptoms of a weak battery. So if you have any of those symptoms, first thing to do is to get the battery tested. And by the way, no matter what kind of an electrical problem you have, doesn't make any difference if you're blowing bulbs, if the turn signals aren't working, you name it, all kinds of different things. The heat isn't working the way it should. The air conditioning isn't working the way it should. Always, always, with anything that has the potential for being electrical in nature, have the battery tested. Now the reason for this is all of the electrical things on the car are now controlled by little modules, little mini computers. And each one of those computers has a minimum threshold for proper operation. Just like your laptop or your desktop computer, whatever, if they're operating off of household current, you've heard of brownouts and different things like that, the voltage drops, your computer shuts down to protect itself and different things like that. Well, the same thing with a car. And if the battery voltage is dropping too low, then one of these computers may shut down and the system that it controls may not function properly. Now, one other symptom of a bad battery is a clock that resets to noon every time you start the car. If you can't figure out what's going on with the clock in your car because you set it and the next thing you know it's not right again, and you set it and then one day you realize that, gee, I just started the car and it says 12 o'clock. Whoops. What that means is that during starting the battery is weak and the normal starting draws the battery voltage too low and the clock resets itself. You just rebooted your clock. Now, other things to consider. Now, cars today are very sophisticated. Now, let's say you have a car that won't start, and to your ears, the starter motor is cranking normally. So you don't think anything about the battery. Well, a no start condition, you always want to check the battery because the battery may not be able to maintain the proper number of RPMs, revolutions per minute, of the starter motor to crank the engine to get it to start. Now, the thing here is you may have a computer that needs to see something maybe 400 revolutions per minute as far as the engine is concerned for it to start. Now, you can't hear the difference between 399 revolutions per minute and 400. Sounds the same. That is, unless you're bionic or some other happy crap like that. But, you know, you can't hear the difference. Sounds normal to you. yet the car will not start. And why would that be? Well, there is a threshold, and if that threshold isn't met, then the car doesn't start. So the car doesn't start, first thing you do is test the battery. Any kind of an electrical problem, first thing you do, test the battery. Doesn't make any difference what the problem is. There are certain basic things that you have to know before you can go on to step number 2. And because the battery controls everything electrical on the car, well, you have to check the battery first. That is step number 1. And if you don't have a good battery, every test that you perform on that electrical system, every test that you perform could be bogus. So, you know, there's an old saying about garbage in, garbage out. And what that means when you're talking about computers and so on, if you don't have the proper voltage and everything coming into the computer, what you get out of the computer is going to be garbage. So if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. And that, my friends, is just one of the facts of life these days. So don't be surprised if you have a 3 or 4 year old car that maybe it does need a battery. See, over the years, batteries have become better, but better is not perfect, and every battery ever made will eventually wear out. Will yours wear out at 1 day, or will it wear out at 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, or 6 years? Who knows? But the thing of it is, with modern testing, you can have the battery tested, and as a result of that test, you've got a good idea as to the condition and the reliability of your battery. Let's take a break. We'll be right back on Goss's Garage.
Operators are standing by to take your call for Pat at 844-885-4677. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
I get lots of air filter don't, yet many drivers wind up buying a new air filter at every oil change, which is utterly ridiculous. Drivers say techs tell them if they don't buy a new air filter, they'll waste a lot of gas. Maybe that statement comes from ignorance or airflow into the engine. It doesn't affect gas mileage because the computer is always precisely matching fuel to the incoming air. In other words, a dirty filter means less air, and less air means less gas, so there's never an imbalance between air and fuel. Certainly when a filter gets really, really dirty, it can cause performance problems, but even then it may not affect gas mileage. So how long do air filters last? Unless you drive in really dusty conditions, air filters usually last 30 to 60,000 miles. Overselling of air filters is an enormous problem, and the best way not to be taken is to learn how to check your own air filter and check it twice a year. I get lots of questions about BG products, many about specific products or services like, is BG44K really that good, or are BG transmission, cooling system, and power steering flushes actually necessary? But most popular of all, do I use BG products in my cars? Well, the answer to all of those questions is yes. A regular schedule of BG flushes and chemicals will deliver the longest possible life from all the lubricated and fuel delivery parts on your vehicles. And do I use BG products? You bet I do. I drive nice cars, and I drive a lot. Plus, my live radio and TV shows mean that my cars have to be absolutely reliable. A no start from dirty fuel injectors or a failed transmission just isn't acceptable in my life. Remember, deposits and dirty fluids ruin expensive parts. For reliability like I demand, visit one of the quality shops that sell BG products and perform BG services. To find a BG professional near you, bgfindashop.com.
back to Goss's Garage with your host, Pat Goss.
This portion of Goss's Garage is brought to you by BG Products. And yes, I do use them in my cars. And yes, I do sell them in my shops. All right, we're talking about batteries because it's that time of the year where, for a lot of us, where we get a big temperature change as winter comes about. Batteries fail, they leave you stranded and so on. So the recommendation is to get the battery tested now before it's cold so that you won't be left stranded when it does get cold. All right, now suppose you have your battery tested and the battery is bad. It is garbage, pure unadulterated garbage. What are you going to do? Well, there's a lot of things you can do, but you're going to buy a new battery, that's for sure. But how do you go about doing that? Well, before we discuss that, let's go to Australia and talk to Leslie. Leslie, welcome to Goss's Garage.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, I've been listening to your program today. And first is a comment about batteries. My Toyota Camry has a sealed battery with a green LED on top. I like those batteries. You don't have to worry about distilled water and topping it up and things like that. And the green light went out. So I took it to the dealer, and they battery tested it and said, hey, the battery's okay. It's just the LED has failed. But shortly after the battery failed, and I had to borrow one of the jump starter gizmos to keep the vehicle mobile and go and get the battery changed. So yeah, that's just a little comment about your battery talk.
All right, well, Leslie.
And yeah, the battery was about 4 years old.
Leslie, hold on just a second.
And
Leslie, hold on just a second. Number one, that is not an LED. That is an optical unit that allows light to come through in a certain manner. When they go out, it's telling you that one cell in that battery is bad, and unless the shop that tests the battery has modern test equipment, and a lot of dealers don't have modern equipment. Dealers don't like to spend money on equipment lots of times. So some of the lesser quality test equipment for batteries will pass that battery with the dead cell. But when that green light goes out, believe it, the battery is bad.
yeah, okay. Thank you, Pat.
All right.
Now, the next thing is the automatic transmission has been flushed a couple of times. And the lab test oil report is still not the best, but it's not the end of the world. So I know I've got to, I don't want to sell this car or trade it in because I don't want to con someone else. I'll just probably give it to the wreckers or the scrapyard and buy another car eventually. But I'm playing with it while it's still going. Now what happened was the other day I tried reversing up a steep driveway. And I was being careful, so I took my foot off the gas and it started rolling forwards while I was reversing. And then when I applied a little bit of accelerator, there was a bang from the transmission before it caught and started reversing. So, yeah, I tried to do a handbrake start with an automatic transmission, and yeah, it still banged a bit, and then I just kept it revved up and reversed out of there. I tried it on a forward slope. It doesn't do it in drive and forwards, but that slope was not so steep. So I'm just wondering what you might advise about this.
All right, first, of course, whenever you have any kind of an issue like that, check the transmission fluid level, because frequently going uphill, of course, all the fluid runs to the back of the pan, and even if it's just a teeny little bit low, then what happens is it starts pulling air, and it's just pulling a little bit of transmission fluid through the pump, and it takes a while to build the pressure. When it builds pressure, all of a sudden the clutches engage and bam, and the car moves. So fluid level is the very first thing. Second thing is, if somebody's had the transmission pan off, you want to make sure that if they did anything with the filter in the transmission, that they put a new gasket between the filter and the valve body, because lots of times in the same scenario, if that filter or if that gasket is bad, it will pull air again and not the right amount of fluid, and then you get this slam into gear. So that's where I'd start looking.
Yes, thank you, Pat. I find that valuable advice. Because the transmission was flushed and everything at the dealer, the level is correct, and I have checked that, bearing in mind that it's lower when cold and high when hot, etc. But yes, when I did this flush, I did have the pan removed, and it doesn't have a filter. It has a screen, probably a nylon mesh screen in the Toyota Camry. And yeah, they did check the screen and put it back, so presumably that's where the fault would lie. They checked the magnets and they said they was clean, but yeah, I think they didn't put the screen back properly from what you say.
That would be a prime suspect, because we see that quite frequently.
Yeah, okay, I might have to go back to them with that.
Right. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Pat, for today.
All right. Take care, Leslie. Good talking to you. All right. Now, back to our, well, no, not just yet. Let's take a break. Then we'll talk more about batteries.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
Space Saver spare tires sure do look silly, but if you use them properly, they will get you home safely. Now, a common problem with them is low air pressure. Spares are buried in the trunk and no one ever seems to check their pressure. Plus, they typically require much higher pressure than your regular tires. Also, Space Saver spares have limits on how far and how fast you can drive on them. Bottom line, always read and follow the caution warnings on their labels and sidewalls. Oh yeah, don't be one of those poor schmucks with a flat tire and a flat spare. Check your spare once a month. While checking the spare, look at the jack handle, and the lug wrench to be sure everything is there and in working order. The best spare tire in the world is useless without the tools to put it on the car. Some cars may even require special lug nuts to mount the spare. If those special lug nuts are missing, you will have no safe way to use your spare. Life changes at a ferocious pace these days, especially when it comes to maintaining our cars. For example, automatic transmissions now need regular fluid flushes. Transmission fluid breaks down with use, and although it may look fine, its additives wear out and it can no longer properly protect bands, clutches, seals, and other hugely expensive parts inside your transmission. Bottom line, more wear and a shorter transmission life. Now you can significantly extend transmission life with a BG transmission flush every 24 to 30,000 miles or 2 years. BG makes the best transmission flush machine I've ever tested. It renews all of the fluid in your transmission, not just a small part of it. The BG transmission flush machine is safe, too, because it uses the natural circulation of the transmission. Your transmission will work better and last longer. As with everything BG offers, this is a superior service. For more information, go to bgprod.com or bgfindashop.com.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
Please subscribe to Goss's Garage on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. And for more car tips, tricks, and money-saving ideas, visit goss-garage.com. Oh, by the way, folks, next week, we're going to be joined by John Davis from MotorWeek. So if you have new car questions or questions about what's going on in the automotive industry, by all means, get them ready. Give us a call next week. John will be on the line with us, and we can talk about all things dealing with new cars. All right. Now, we have had a battery test. We know that our battery is bad, so what do? Well, if we're like most people, we pull out our phone and we start looking for, we'll put in battery and then sale or sale price or low price or something like that. Well, you know, that's interesting. And then you get all of these different ads. You know, this one has a battery that is high power. Somebody else has a battery that is heavy duty. Then there is super power, super duty. There are all of these different terms that are supposed to make your heart flutter. Oh my goodness, super heavy duty, high power. Oh my God, that's the one for me. Well, all of these terms like that are meaningless because there is no industry standard for these terms. Heavy duty has no real meaning. None of these terms have any real meaning because they aren't standardized. All right, so now we have these non-standard terms that are supposed to pluck your heartstrings and make you want to buy their product. It's all Madison Avenue garbage because it's all meaningless in the real sense of things. All right, so now you know that. What do you do next? Well, okay, you start looking at warranties. Here you have one that is guaranteed for 24 months, then there's 36, 48, and so on. Then you have maybe lifetime, maybe one that's life and a half. Not sure what life and a half is, but anyway, you've got all of these different warranties. And how do you compare them? Well, you really can't because they don't necessarily have anything to do with the quality of the battery. You would assume that a 60-month battery is going to be better than a 24-month battery, but there's nothing that guarantees that because all of these warranties are based on actuarials. They look at the people who buy their brand of battery because different people buy different brands. And so you're looking at these warranties, and you may have one that has a 60-month warranty, but it's a real cheap battery inside because most of the people who buy that particular brand of battery are driving older cars, and let's face it, older cars fall apart, older cars get traded, older cars get sold and things like that. So they can afford to give you a long warranty because they know that the majority of the cars that these batteries are going to go into are not going to be around all that long, so they're not going to have to warrant the battery if it fails. Granted, there'll be a few, but let's face it, cheap battery, longer warranty, you pay more money for the warranty, and which is also something that a lot of people with older cars, you got cars that are a mess, they'll step up to bat and they'll pay a ton of money for a battery with a longer warranty. Okay, so now we got a cheap-ass battery, long warranty, paid a ton of money for it, company made a huge profit on it, but it really is garbage inside. So, you know, your car gets sold, warranty is void at that point, and they have made money, and you're happy with it. You'll probably do it again because you didn't keep the car long enough for the warranty to come into play. You can't look at just the number of months of warranty. The reason is that batteries are warranted on a pro-rated basis. Now what that means is that if your battery has a 36-month warranty on it and it fails at 24 months, you pay a set price for each month of service that you got out of that battery. So you would pay 24 months times whatever the monthly fee is, and then what's left is credited to the price of the new battery. And you say, okay, well, that's no big deal. I can understand that, but the thing that you may not realize is that typically that prorated warranty is going to be applied to the suggested list price of the battery. And very few places sell batteries at list price. Usually you got something 20, 25, 30% off of list when you bought the battery. So now for the replacement, you're going to pay full list price. So, whoa, wait a minute. All of a sudden, your 24 months of use plus paying list price for the replacement battery, you could have bought another battery and saved money. So the warranty didn't really do you any good. But there is a way to get over on warranties. And that is to look at the number of months of free replacement. You see, most battery manufacturers now give you some number of months, might be 6 months, it might be a year, might be 18 months of free replacement. So, you look at the number of months of free replacement, and that's how you compare the warranties. Compare it on free replacement, not the total number of months that the battery is warranted for. So, number of months of free replacement. There's one that you can do a comparison on. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll have more on batteries coming up here on Goss's Garage.
Stay tuned. Pat will take your calls next at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. Goss's Garage continues in a moment.
You probably don't think about it, but if you double the life of your car, your fixed expenses per mile will drop 50%. But how can you double the life of a car? Well, that's easy. Simply use BG products and flushes for your routine maintenance. I'll bet you know someone whose cars last a lot longer than yours, plus they never seem to have problems. Now you can enjoy those great savings too. Simply enroll in the BG Protection Plan, and BG will guarantee covered parts for as long as you own your car, in writing. With the BG Protection Plan, long after your car is paid off, you'll still have years of warranty left. Think about it. No payments and no worries about major repair bills. That's amazing. It's almost too good to be true because the BG Protection Plan is also absolutely free. My cars are covered by the BG Protection Plan. Yours should be too. For details, bgprod.com or 800-327-8883. Don't fall victim to "it looks good, therefore it must be good." Like when thump bump you're tapped by another car at a traffic light or in a parking lot. You get out and look, and being a good person, yeah, right. You just don't want the hassle of calling the cops and your insurance company. Plus, you don't even see a scratch, so you let it go. That could be a minor to deadly mistake. What you see is purely cosmetic, but hidden behind the cosmetics are safety systems. Those hidden parts absorb and dissipate energy, and they may have been damaged in that tiny bump. The problem is that unless you have energy absorbers and crumple zones checked, they may not protect you if your car is hit again in the same spot. Most safety parts are one-time use, and that first minor bump may have used up a portion of their effectiveness. Then, in an actual accident, they're only partially effective. For instance, the energy absorber may transmit more of the crash energy into the car and the people in the car. That could mean the difference between no or minor injuries or something worse, especially for young or elderly passengers. Even in bumps that seem like a total non-issue, take a minute to exchange information, then have the safety parts behind the bumper checked. It might save a life.
This is Goss's Garage with Pat Goss. Call the show now at 844-885-4677. That's 844-885-GOSS. And now, Pat Goss.
Hey, if you don't know what you're looking at right now, well, you ought to check out Goss's Garage YouTube channel, because this tool could save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and you should know what it is, and you should know that you ought to ask about it if you have certain Ford Motor Company vehicles. All right, for those enjoying Goss's Garage on TuneIn.com, please note our new showtime every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. And that, of course, we repeat at 1 o'clock. Can't call in at 1, but get the same content. All right, now, we've been talking about buying batteries. Now, all of this superpower and heavy duty and all this other stuff, I already told you, doesn't mean anything because there is no standard for it. We know that warranty doesn't guarantee quality. It just guarantees that they'll replace the battery, prorated, of course. So what can we use as a comparison from one battery to another? Well, there is a standard on batteries, and it's called cold cranking amps, or CCAs. Cold cranking amps. Now, this is a unit of measurement to determine how well a battery functions at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is a standard. So it isn't something that is going to vary from one manufacturer to another. Now, what you're looking for are the most cold cranking amps that will physically fit in your car. See, batteries come in different group sizes. So maybe you have a small battery, maybe you have a big battery. Size of the battery does not control cold cranking amps. you might have this teeny little battery, yay big, and it has more cold cranking amps because of the way it's designed and built than this great big sucker that isn't built the same inside. So the most cold cranking amps that you can find that'll physically fit in your car. Now be careful. A lot of people, and it's shocking how many people do this, they think that, you know, things for boats and so on are automatically heavy duty and stuff like that. So they go to their local marine store and they buy a marine battery. After all, it's made for a boat, and that means that it's got to be heavy duty, and that battery is rated in MCA, marine cranking amps. Now, marine cranking amps, or there's another term that a lot of people advertise to sucker you in, is cranking amps. Now remember, there's only one that you really want to be concerned with, and that is cold cranking amps, CCA. CA is cranking amps, MCA is marine cranking amps. Now, the cranking amps are rated at 32 degrees above zero. Now, as the temperature goes up, so do the numbers for the power that the battery produces. So a 600 cold cranking amp battery and a 600 cranking amp battery are nothing alike. The 600 cranking amp battery can't produce nearly as much power as the 600 cold cranking amp battery, because the cold cranking amp battery is tested at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a harder thing for the battery to withstand than the cranking amps, which is tested at 32 degrees. Marine cranking amps, I believe, are 32 degrees as well. So that means that somebody marketing the battery could advertise this really high cranking amp or power rating, and in reality it isn't that great because it isn't cold cranking amps. It's cranking amps, or it is marine cranking amps. So big differences here, and I hate to say it, but you know, in today's world, everybody's trying to get an edge. And unfortunately, a lot of businesses try to get that edge by polite deceit. In other words, they're not really breaking the rules, but they're playing on your lack of knowledge. They're not saying anything wrong when they say that this battery has 600 cranking amps, because it does. But unless you know, you as the consumer, the end user, unless you know that there is a difference between cranking amps and cold cranking amps, you know, you're going to get screwed. There's no way around it. So these companies play on your lack of knowledge. They don't say anything that is outright a lie. They don't say anything that is going to get them in some kind of a investigation or sued or anything like that. But they know that the majority of people don't know the difference between cold cranking amps and cranking amps, or have ever even heard of a cranking amp or what it means. So they take advantage of that. They take advantage of you. They take advantage of your lack of knowledge and advertise 600 or maybe it's 1,000 cranking amp battery. Wow. And it sounds so impressive. So be careful about all these terms, because heavy duty and all that stuff doesn't mean a thing. So these are just some of the things that you need to look for as far as batteries are concerned. Trying to think of some of the other things that where you might get tripped up, and of course there are quite a few, but we are getting close on the clock, so we won't have time to go into any of those. But fact of the matter is that if you shop for cold cranking amps. Remember, there is no such thing as a battery with too many cold cranking amps for your car. If you could get 1,000,000 cold cranking amps, it would be fine. Average range is 450 to 800. Some will be 1,000. So buy the most cold cranking amps that'll physically fit your car, and everything electrical on that car will last longer. Oh my goodness, we have music in the background. I do believe, I'm not sure, but I think that means that it is time for me to say goodbye. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Steve McMillan and George Stockton for producing today's show. For everyone here at Goss's Garage, I'm Pat Goss. Until next time, please, everyone, drive gently. See you next week.